New York City, November 28, 1953, 2:25 in the morning. A man hits the sidewalk 10 stories below. His name is Frank Olson. He is 43 years old. He has a wife, 5 children, a government salary. The official report says suicide. His family is told he had a breakdown. They are told almost nothing else. They believe it. For 20 years, they believe it. But here is what they were never told. 9 days before Frank Olson fell through that window, his own colleagues had slipped something into his drink. No warning, no consent, no explanation. Just a glass of Cointreau passed across a dinner table at a government retreat in rural Maryland. What was in that glass would eventually bring down one of the most powerful agencies in the world, and Frank Olson was just the beginning. How does a government convince itself that experimenting on its own citizens, without their knowledge, without their consent, is not just acceptable but necessary? This is the story of MKUltra. 150 secret sub-projects, 80 institutions across America and Canada, universities, hospitals, prisons, mental wards, brothels, thousands of people who went to bed one night as ordinary Americans and woke up as unwitting test subjects for the Central Intelligence Agency. The question that runs through every single part of this story is the same. What were they trying to build? And when you find out, the answer is more disturbing than the experiments themselves. To understand how this started, you have to go back to 1950, the Korean War. American soldiers are being captured, and something is happening to them in captivity that nobody in Washington can explain. They confess on camera to crimes they did not commit. They denounce America with calm, coherent voices. Some of them refuse to come home when the war ends. The Western press has a name for it: brainwashing. The word comes from a CIA analyst named Edward Hunter, translating a Chinese term, shi nao, wash brain. Inside the CIA, panic sets in quietly. If the enemy has developed a reliable method to rewrite a man's beliefs, to turn a soldier into a puppet, then the Cold War is no longer just a war of weapons. It is a war for the human mind, and America is losing it. In 1951, a classified memo circulates inside the agency. It asks one question directly, with no diplomatic softening. Can we get control of an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will and even against fundamental laws of nature, such as self-preservation? That memo is not the work of a rogue officer. It is official CIA doctrine. And on April 13, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles signs the authorization for a program that will haunt the United States for decades. He calls it MKUltra. The CIA's first attempts at mind control are almost embarrassingly primitive. Under a program called Project Artichoke, launched in 1951, they focus on 3 tools: hypnosis, sodium pentothal, the so-called truth serum, and torture. They test these on prisoners, on defectors, on men suspected of being double agents who may or may not be guilty of anything at all. The results are disappointing. Hypnosis works on some people some of the time. Sodium pentothal produces information, but not reliably true information. Under enough stress, people say whatever makes the pain stop. And then comes the most damaging discovery of all. The CIA sends analysts to study what the Chinese and Soviets are actually doing to American POWs. The answer, when it arrives, is not mysterious. No drugs, no science fiction technology, just sleep deprivation, starvation, isolation, and psychological pressure applied long enough and hard enough to break almost any human being. The confessions are not evidence of brainwashing. They are evidence of breaking. That realization should have ended the program. Instead, it accelerated it. If the enemy can break a man with no special tools, the CIA needs something stronger, something surgical, something that leaves no marks and changes the mind from the inside. They need a chemical weapon for the human brain. And then, in 1953, A man walks into the director's office with a proposal unlike anything the CIA has ever heard. He is 35 years old. He has a PhD in chemistry from Caltech. He has a club foot and a stutter. He raises goats on a farm in rural Virginia. He composts his own food, meditates, reads poetry. His name is Sidney Gottlieb, and what he is about to build will destroy hundreds of lives and change American history forever. To understand Gottlieb's plan, you need to understand one molecule, lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. In April 1943, a Swiss chemist named Albert Hofmann accidentally absorbed a trace amount of a compound he had first synthesized 5 years earlier and tried to bicycle home from his lab in Basel. By the time he arrived, the walls were breathing, colors were screaming. His neighbor had transformed into a witch. Hoffman had just experienced the first intentional LSD trip in human history. He described it with equal parts terror and wonder as extraordinary, overwhelming, unlike anything the human mind had ever encountered. Sandow's laboratories began distributing the compound to researchers worldwide, almost for free, as a potential psychiatric tool. The scientific community was electrified. Could LSD simulate psychosis? Could it unlock repressed memories? Could it help reach patients who could not be reached any other way? Then the CIA read the reports, and Sidney Gottlieb saw something that no psychiatrist had seen. He did not see a therapeutic tool. He saw a weapon, a substance so powerful that a single microgram, invisible, odorless, tasteless, could render a human being completely unable to control their own thoughts. What if you could dose an enemy agent before interrogation? What if you could slip it into a foreign leader's water supply? What if, given enough research, you could use it to erase a person's existing beliefs and implant new ones? Gottlieb went to Dulles with the idea. Dulles signed. MKUltra was open for business. What Gottlieb built over the next decade was not a single experiment. It was an empire. 150 sub-projects spread across 80 institutions. Most of the researchers involved had no idea they were working for the CIA. Funding flowed through fake foundations with academic-sounding names that existed for one purpose only: laundering CIA money into research budgets without leaving fingerprints. In Montreal, Dr. Ewen Cameron was not a fringe scientist. He was the president of the World Psychiatric Association. He ran the Allen Memorial Institute at McGill University and was considered one of the most respected psychiatrists on Earth. And between 1957 and 1964, he conducted some of the most horrifying experiments in the history of medicine. His goal was something he called psychic driving. The theory was that if you could completely erase a person's personality, break it down to nothing, you could rebuild it from scratch, program it, control it. He administered electroconvulsive therapy to his patients, not at clinical levels, but at 30 to 40 times the standard dosage. Multiple sessions per day for weeks, combined with drug-induced sleep that kept patients unconscious for 20 to 65 days at a time. They lost the ability to speak. Some forgot how to walk. Many regressed to childlike states, unable to feed themselves, unable to remember their own names or their marriages or their children. They came in with depression and anxiety. They left as hollow shells. While patients were in this demolished state, Cameron played recorded messages through speakers mounted under their pillows for 16 to 20 hours a day. Thousands of repetitions, trying to overwrite a human mind like wiping a hard drive and installing new software. It did not work. What it produced instead was permanent psychological devastation. At least 100 patients suffered lasting harm. Several never recovered. Cameron received $69,000 from the CIA for this work. He died in 1967, never charged, never prosecuted, never publicly confronted.
In San Francisco, a CIA officer named George White rented an apartment at 225 Chestnut Street and decorated it to look like a brothel. Explicit paintings on the walls, two-way mirrors behind the wallpaper, hidden cameras. He hired sex workers to bring unsuspecting men back to the apartment strangers pulled off the street and dosed them with LSD without their knowledge, while CIA officers watched through the mirrors taking notes. White's own diary, discovered decades later, described the operation casually, like a man writing about a hobby. He called his subjects unwitting individuals. He meant people who had no idea what was being done to them. The program ran for years. Inside American prisons, inmates at Atlanta Federal Penitentiary and the Lexington Narcotic Farm were administered LSD, sometimes for 77 consecutive days, often in exchange for sentence reductions or small privileges, without being told what they were receiving. One of those inmates was James Whitey Bulger, later one of the most feared organized crime figures in American history, who described the experiments as nightmarish and said the psychological darkness they produced never fully lifted. He had been told the drug was a treatment for schizophrenia. At Harvard University in 1959, a 16-year-old mathematical prodigy named Theodore Kaczynski enrolled as a student and became a subject in a research project run by psychologist Henry Murray, who received CIA funding. Students were told they were participating in a debate. Instead, they were subjected to intensive personal attacks on their intelligence, their worldview, and their identity by a trained interrogator specifically instructed to break them down. Kaczynski participated for 3 years. He later became the Unabomber, conducting 17 years of bombings that killed 3 people and injured 23, and in his writings expressed a profound, obsessive hatred of modern science and the institutions that used technology to control human beings. The connection has never been fully dismissed. By 1972, MKUltra had been running for nearly 20 years. It had consumed millions of dollars and destroyed hundreds of lives, and it had produced almost nothing. There was no reliable mind control drug, no method to permanently reprogram a human being, no chemical weapon that could make an enemy agent confess the truth or obey his captors on command. The entire program had failed, and now it was becoming a liability. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms received word that Congress was beginning to investigate the agency's domestic activities. He called Sidney Gottlieb into his office and told him to destroy the files, all of them. Boxes of documents, decades of records, evidence of everything: the hospitals, the prisons, the brothels, the unwitting subjects, the destroyed lives, shredded. It was the largest deliberate destruction of government evidence in American history. Helms believed the story was over. He was wrong. In December 1974, investigative journalist Seymour Hersh published a front-page story in the New York Times revealing that the CIA had been conducting illegal operations against American citizens on domestic soil. Congress launched the Church Committee, a full Senate investigation into the intelligence community's abuses. CIA officials testified, confirmed programs had existed, said the records had been destroyed. It seemed like the story would end there. Then, in 1977, a CIA archivist doing a routine inventory in a records room in Warrenton, Virginia, stumbled across a misfiled box stored in the wrong building. Gottlieb had missed it. Inside were 20,000 documents related to MKUltra, financial records, invoices from universities, memos between Gottlieb and Helms, evidence of everything they thought they had buried. The documents were released under the Freedom of Information Act. On August 3, 1977, CIA Director Admiral Stansfield Turner sat before the United States Senate and confirmed what the documents showed. The CIA had dosed American citizens with LSD without their consent. They had funded experiments that permanently destroyed patients' minds. They had run safe houses where men were drugged as they slept. Turner called it a regrettable chapter in CIA history. Regrettable. Sidney Gottlieb, the architect of MKUltra, the man who designed the experiments and oversaw the destruction of the files, retired quietly in 1973 and returned to his goat farm in Virginia. He volunteered at a hospice, took yoga classes, studied Eastern philosophy, and was never charged with a crime. He died in 1999 at the age of 80, surrounded by the peace of a quiet rural life. Richard Helms, who ordered the destruction of the evidence, was convicted in 1977, not for MKUltra, but for lying to Congress about CIA operations in Chile. His sentence was a $2,000 fine and a 2-year suspended sentence. He called the fine a badge of honor. In 1994, 41 years after his father fell through that hotel window, Frank Olson's son, Eric, had the body exhumed. A forensic anthropologist examined the remains and found that the injuries on Frank Olson's skull were inconsistent with a head-first fall through glass. They indicated he had been struck in the head before going through the window. The forensic examiner's conclusion was that the evidence was consistent with homicide. The case was never officially reopened. Eric Olson has spent the last 50 years of his life trying to find out who killed his father. He has not stopped, and there is one final irony worth noting. The CIA's LSD program never produced a mind control weapon, but Ken Kesey, author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, first encountered LSD as a paid volunteer in a CIA-funded study at the Veterans Hospital in Menlo Park, California. He loved it. He began distributing it to his friends. Those friends became the Merry Pranksters. The pranksters gave LSD to the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead played it at parties across California. The Summer of Love. The counterculture, the revolution in consciousness that defined the 1960s, seeded at least in part by a CIA weapons program. The agency that wanted to control minds accidentally helped set them free. November 28, 1953. We started here, a man at a window, 10 floors up, 2:25 in the morning. Frank Olson did not go through that window because he was insane. He went through that window because he knew something. He had been inside the program. He had seen what was happening. He had reportedly witnessed experiments in Europe that disturbed him deeply, things he said he could not live with. He told his wife he had made a terrible mistake. He did not say what, and then he was dead. We began this story with one question. How does a government convince itself that experimenting on its own people is necessary? The answer is simple, and it is ancient. They told themselves it was a war. They told themselves the enemy had already done it. They told themselves that the safety of millions justified the suffering of a few. They told themselves that the ends justified the means, and in doing so, they became exactly what they were afraid of. MKUltra was officially shut down in 1973. Officially. Over 20,000 documents were recovered. Thousands of subjects were never identified. No one went to prison. If you made it to the end, you now know something most Americans don't. If you made it this far, you already know this channel is different, no fluff, no filler, just the stories they never taught you in school. The ones buried in classified files, sealed for decades, hidden in plain sight. Every video we make goes this deep, every single one. So if you want to know what else they were hiding, subscribe. It takes 2 seconds, and it means we keep going. And if this story hit you the way it hit us when we first found it, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that stories like this one deserve to be seen. We will see you in the next one. And trust us, you are not ready for what comes next.